Well, this bridge was part of the Big Four Railroad's double tracking of its system from east to west. And when this happened, they built, with the double tracking, they cut out a number of highways, and by overpassing some and by building overpasses over others. And as a part of this, they designed a number of concrete arches, of which there are 4 that are rather alike here in Putnam County and Hendricks County. They're called open spandrel arches in that if you look at them from the sides, you can see through them. They have arch columns in them. And these particular ones are also kind of special in that the piers between the arches are not filled with concrete, but that they're actually curtain walls, and therefore there are open chambers inside of them. This is the Big Four, which is the Cleveland, Cincinnati, Chicago, and St. Louis Railroad. And it was at first basically an Ohio-Indiana railroad, and then it became part of the New York subsidiary of the New York Central system. But the Big Four Railroad always retained a lot of its own corporate structure and its own design work, both for the road itself and for its bridge work. So it didn't get subsumed in a national corporation and disappear. It always had strong elements of separate identity. William Tyrrell did a book on the most artistic bridges in the United States of America, and he included the design of this arch as one of the most artistic designs in the United States. So it's kind of neat at the national level. It had national recognition. It has recognition locally, though, for quite different properties. And by locally, I mean all 4 of these bridges in Putnam, 2 in Putnam County and 2 in Hendricks County, in that these open spandrel arches have spots in them so you can go through them. They're open so that you can climb through them. And folklorists have often talked about bridges metaphorically as life passage kinds of things, usually between life and death. But here in Hendricks County and in Putnam County, they've become life passages for young adults who have climbed through them in the dark and what have you, and through the various arches and into those chambers in the pier columns. This has led to some of these bridges being called haunted. And there's a formal folklore about these bridges, and the folklore talks about various workers or people passing over the tracks or what have you. There are a variety of stories here, but about them either being knocked off the tracks and over into the stream or rode by a passing train, or in one case it was, or a couple of cases actually, were workers who were working on these concrete bridges and fell into the concrete when it was wet, and have been entombed in there. And all of these stories have as a piece of it that you can hear the various folks who have passed on through these various accidents. You can hear them crying when trains pass over, particularly in the night. Well, if you climb inside these bridges and you happen to be in one of these columns or in one of these pier chambers when trains pass over, you get marvelous reverb in there, and so you can see why this has become such notable folklore. there's a lot of individual graffiti or artistic work, depending upon how you see it and how you judge what you see throughout these open spandrel arches. And a lot of it's boy-girl stuff, teenage stuff, but there's also a number of paintings in some of these arches that reflect the mystic, haunted qualities of life inside them, particularly at night. About 10 years ago, somebody took on the costume of a goat man, and so as you would pass under this bridge at nights, sometimes you would see, I assume by flashlight and what have you on the face, you'd see this goat character in one of these pier chambers out there. And so the whole business of haunting and legends and passage of here for young people et al. is certainly been a piece of the action for these bridges, and make them important parts of Putnam County history and folklore, as well as part of engineering heritage and some of our artistic design work that was done in this country in concrete. There's a second bridge of this general design built by the Big Four Railroad here in Putnam County. And it sits to the west of Greencastle and north of the structure known as the Big Four Arch. It looks very much like the other bridge. It's in a different valley, and so the designers had to shape it slightly differently. And I guess the one big difference is that the Big Four Arch and the two arches of this same basic design that one finds in Hendricks County all cross a county road as well as a stream. And this other bridge in Putnam County doesn't cross a road. So it is, you have to walk back through a field to get to it. You can see it from the roads all right, but it's not, it hasn't become such a haunt for teenagers, and therefore hasn't been visited and haunted by folks of different ages and times as much as the Big Four Arch itself here and the two bridges in Hendricks County. Designers of these bridges often talked about these concrete bridges as permanent bridges. And my grand hope is that, we keep and enhance our railroad system in this country, particularly as we need to move away from our national dependence on oil. And that the Big Four Arch and the other structures along this road that were so beautifully and functionally designed at the early part of the 20th century are here a century from now to serve us and to remind us of where we've come from.